Picture a caveman. Go ahead. Let the picture form. You already know him. Heavy brow. Matted hair. A club dragging in the dirt. Grunting at things he cannot understand. Hollywood built him. Cartoons raised him. And somewhere in the back of your mind, he still lives. A creature so simple, he barely knows what day it is. That picture has been lying to you your whole life. And it hid a question from you. A question that should have kept you up at night. 20,000 years ago. In the middle of an ice age. Small bands of hunters would break camp and walk for days across frozen ground to reach one particular valley. They did this to meet a herd of reindeer. Thousands of animals that passed through that valley once a year. During a window that lasted only a few days. Miss the window, and your family starves through the dark months. These people had no calendar, no written numbers, no clocks anywhere on Earth, and not one word for October. Yet year after year, generation after generation, they showed up on time. So, how does a mind that has never seen a calendar make an appointment with the future? Sit with that for a second. Because it gets worse. Families that misread the signs badly enough left no children behind. You are sitting here 20,000 years later. Because your line never broke. Not once. This is the story of how they did it. And by the time it ends, the caveman in your head will be gone for good. Come stand in their camp for a morning. It is late summer in Ice Age Europe, somewhere north of what will one day be called France. A river runs cold and gray past a cluster of hide tents. Smoke rises from a single fire. 9 people live here. And this morning, all 9 of them are waiting on one decision that has to be made today. The decision is whether to leave. Somewhere far to the north, there is a valley. And through that valley, once a year, the reindeer come. A river of animals pouring between 2 hills. More meat in one place than this family will see for the rest of the year. Meat to eat fresh. Meat to dry and carry into the dark months. Fat to burn in stone lamps when the sun barely rises. Hides for new clothing. Because last winter's clothing is falling apart. And antler for the tools that make every other tool possible. One good week in that valley pays for the entire winter. Now, look at the price of attending. The valley is many days of walking from this river. Every day on the trail burns through the dried fish they have been stacking up all summer. Food that was supposed to be their insurance. 2 of the 9 are small children who slow the pace. One is an old woman with a bad hip. And once the group commits to the trail, there is no turning back halfway. Because by then the fish will be gone and the first snows will be closing the passes behind them. The reindeer will not wait. That is the brutal part. The herd crosses, when the herd crosses, a window of a few days. Maybe a week in a good year. Arrive too early and you sit in the cold. Burning through food you cannot replace. Staring at an empty valley with no way to know if the animals already passed or simply have not come yet. Arrive too late and you find the ground churned to mud by 10,000 hooves. Droppings already old. And a winter ahead with nothing in it. Here is the question standing in the middle of that camp. When do you leave? Check their equipment. Because you would want tools for a problem like this. There is no calendar hanging in the tent. There are no marks on a wall counting down. Nobody in this camp can write, because no writing system exists anywhere on Earth. and none will for something like 15,000 years. Nobody here has ever heard a word for Tuesday, or week, or 9/15. If you handed them your phone with the date glowing on the screen, it would tell them nothing at all. So how would you do it? You, personally, standing in that camp with everything stripped away. Leave too soon and you starve. Leave too late and you starve. The window is invisible and the penalty is your children. Now watch the person the whole camp is watching. She comes out of the second tent slowly. The old woman. The one with the bad hip. She has not been the fastest walker for 20 years. On the trail, she will be the one everybody waits for. And yet this morning, nobody moves. Nobody packs a single thing until she gives an answer. She walks past the fire, past the drying racks, out to the edge of the camp, and she stands there facing east, watching the horizon where the light is coming up. Her body already knows some things about time. The hunger in her stomach knows how long it has been since the evening meal. The stiffness in her hip knows a cold night just ended. Bodies are good at hours, but no cell in the human body can feel how many days remain before winter closes the passes. What she needs this morning is bigger than anything a body can feel. So she reads something bigger. Follow her eyes east. The sun is coming up over a ridge, and on that ridge there is a notch. A V-shaped gap where the rock dips between two peaks. She is not admiring the sunrise. She is measuring it. Here is what she knows that you have probably never noticed. You think the sun rises in the east? She knows better, because she has slept outdoors every night of her life. The sun does not rise in one place. It rises at a slightly different point on the horizon every single morning, sliding along the skyline through the year, drifting south as the days shrink and cold comes on, drifting back north as the days stretch and the world warms up. She has watched that slow swing her entire life. The way you know the furniture in your own living room. She does not know the earth is tilted. She does not know it circles the sun. She has no idea why the sunrise wanders. And it costs her nothing. Because she knows the only thing that matters. The pattern repeats. Every year, the same swing. The same turning points. The same schedule written in light. And that turns her horizon into the face of a clock. The ridge, the notch, a dead tree off to the south. Each one a mark on a dial that is miles wide. Her mother taught her this, standing in this same camp. The way her mother's mother taught her. When the sun comes up touching the left shoulder of the notch, the cold is still far away. When it climbs out of the notch itself, the reindeer are already gathering somewhere in the north. And a family that has not packed is already running late. This morning, the sun rises in the notch. That is the first hand on the clock. The season hand. It is honest and it never breaks. And it is nowhere near enough. The sunrise creeps along the horizon so slowly that a few days of drift are almost impossible to see. Her clock has a season hand accurate to maybe a week or two. A week or two is the difference between a valley full of meat and a valley full of hoof prints. She needs a finer hand. For that, she waits for dark. Night comes down over the camp, and she is outside again. And now she is looking at the moon, out of everything in the sky. The moon is the only thing that visibly changes shape. Night after night, on a schedule short enough to hold in your head. It swells from a thin blade to a full white circle, shrinks back to a blade. And these 3 dark nights, and then a newborn sliver hanging low in the evening. She can count that. Everyone in her world can count that. Not with written numbers, with nights. The fish began to fail when the last moon died. 1 full moon has lived and died since. When the next sliver appears, the window in the north is opening. That is the second hand, the month hand, and you can count it on your fingers. But hold on to a question, because it will matter later in this story. Her count lives in her memory and nowhere else. How many nights can a memory hold before it starts to doubt itself? Was that 2 moons ago or 3? A trader remembers a deal wrong and loses some flint. She remembers a moon wrong and 9 people walk into a snowstorm. The next afternoon, the third hand announces itself, and it does not come from the sky at all. A sound rolls over the camp, high and ragged, and everyone looks up. Cranes, long gray birds in a wavering line. Hundreds of them, all pushing hard toward the south. The old woman stands very still and watches them go, because those birds are information. Cold is building somewhere behind them, close enough that the cranes have already voted with their wings. This is the hand of the clock we have almost completely forgotten how to read. And for her, it may be the most important one of all. To a family that lives inside the land, every living thing around them keeps time. The world is one enormous clock, and every plant and animal in it is a moving part. A certain flower blooming on the riverbank means the fish start running in a few weeks. Stags shedding the velvet from their antlers means the rut is close. And the rut means the herds are gathering to move. A bear eating like it is starving. Hair thickening on the horses. Berries going dark on the south-facing slopes. Each event calling out the next one. A chain of announcements running through the whole living world. None of it is written down. All of it is written in fur and feathers and sap, and stored in the shared memory of the group. Passed from grandmother to mother to child like the most valuable heirloom a family owns. Because it is sun in the notch, 1 moon dead since the fish began to fail. Cranes going south. 3 hands. 1 reading. She walks back into camp and gives a single nod. And the whole place turns over like an engine starting. Tents drop. Meat racks empty into carrying bags. Children are loaded with the light bundles. And by the next sunrise, 9 human beings are strung out in a line heading north, betting everything they have on her, reading of a clock nobody built. The sky has no numbers written on it anywhere. Neither does a birch leaf, or a crane, or the antler of a stag. But all of it repeats. And anything that repeats, anything at all, can be turned into a clock by a mind sharp enough to watch it. Everything she knows lives in 1 aging skull, riding north on a bad hip. And somewhere in that same frozen world, other minds were reaching for something new. A way to take the count out of memory. A way to give time a body of its own. We know they reached for it, because we found what they left behind. Leave the Ice Age. Come forward 20,000 years into a quiet room with clean white light, where a museum drawer slides open. Lying on the padding inside is a sliver of bone about the length of your finger. It came out of the ground at a place in France called Abry-Blanchard from a layer of earth roughly 35,000 years old. It has a cousin in Africa, an engraved bone from a place called Ishango in the Congo, 20,000 years old. Wrapped in its own carved lines and its own decades of argument. But look at this one. Someone covered its surface with rows of small carved marks. 69 of them, punched and scratched in clusters that wind across the bone in a curving path. A path that swings one way, turns, and swings back, like a trail switchbacking down a hillside. Museums are full of carved bones. This one started a fight that has now lasted 60 years. Before I tell you what anyone thinks it is, I want you to look at it yourself. Because for the next few minutes, you are the examiner. Here are the facts on the table. And they are strange. Fact 1. The count and the curve. 69 marks, laid out in a winding line that keeps changing direction. Hold that against a number the sky already gave you. From one dead moon to the next is 29 and a half days. 69 marks is enough to walk you through more than 2 full lives of the moon. And the researcher who studied this bone noticed something that made his hands unsteady. The places where the path turns seem to line up with the places where the moon itself turns. Full circle here. Dead dark there. As if the carver was not just counting nights, but drawing the moon's whole journey. Bend by bend. Fact 2. The marks are not uniform. Their shapes shift little by little along the sequence. Rounder here. Flatter there. As if the carver was not repeating one stamp, but recording something that was itself slowly changing. Fact 3. And this is the one that should raise the hair on your arms. Under a microscope, the cuts do not all match. Different points, different pressure, different angles, in small groups along the path. Researchers have read those differences as signs that the marks were added in separate sittings, a few at a time, rather than carved in one afternoon. The microscope cannot tell us how much time passed between sittings, or whether it was one pair of hands or several. But if that reading is right, then someone kept returning to this little sliver of bone again and again to add the next few marks to the path. So now you rule on it. First option. This is a lunar record. A pocket model of the moon's life. Updated night by someone tracking the sky. Second option. It is a tally of something else entirely. Kills. Trades. Gifts. People. We have no idea. Third option. It is decoration. And the pattern is an accident. Pick one. Hold it. Now, let me tell you about the 60-year fight over that exact choice. In the 1960s, an American researcher named Alexander Marshak put bones like this one under a microscope and came out shaken. He announced that the marks tracked the phases of the moon, that tens of thousands of years before writing, before farming, before anything we call civilization, people were keeping records of the sky. If he was right, the history of the thinking mind needed to be rewritten from the first page. The pushback came fast, and the pushback was fair. Other scientists pointed at the oldest trap in science. The human brain is a pattern-finding machine, and it finds patterns whether they exist or not. You can take almost any string of marks, they argued, and if you squint with enough hope, the moon appears in it. Nothing about a count alone proves what was being counted. For decades, the argument sat there, deadlocked. Then it caught fire again, in our lifetime. In 2023, a team in England published a study of the painted caves, and they were not looking at the animals. They were looking at the little marks beside the animals, the dots and lines, and one strange sign shaped like the letter Y that generations of visitors had walked right past. The team proposed that those marks were recording time, that a set of dots next to an aurochs might mark the season, counted in moons, when the herds migrated or birthed their young. A note pinned to a picture. If that reading is right, these are messages about the calendar, made 20,000 years before what we call the invention of writing. And science answered the way real science does. Within 2 years, other researchers took the idea apart, looking for weak points. Found real ones, gaps in the statistics, problems in the method, and said so in print. That argument is not history. It is happening now, in journals, between living researchers. And the honest answer today is that nobody has won yet. So let me put the evidence in 3 clean stacks. Because you deserve to know exactly how solid the ground is. What we know, the marks are deliberate. Human hands made them on purpose. What we suspect, with good reason. Some of these objects were used to count something, because clustered marks accumulating in sequence are exactly what counting looks like. What nobody has proven that any of them is, beyond doubt, a calendar of the moon. And here is the part I find impossible to shake. The part that survives even if every calendar theory ever proposed turns out to be wrong. Whatever these marks counted, moons or kills or traded furs, the count was sitting there on the bone, outside a skull. A person could die, and the tally would not die with them. A daughter could pick it up and hold her mother's count in her hand. For the first time we can point to in the whole 4 billion year story of life, a record had escaped the body of the one who made it. The moon question can stay open forever. That part is already answered. A record you can hold in your palm, carry in a pouch, pass to a daughter. That was one road out of the trap of memory. But in a field in Scotland, buried under 10,000 years of quiet, archaeologists found something that makes this bone look like a pocket watch next to a cathedral. Fly to Scotland, to a stretch of farmland in Aberdeenshire called Warren Field. Stand in the grass and turn in a full circle. You will see nothing. Green pasture. A line of trees. Sky. Farmers worked this ground for generations and never suspected a thing. Then, one summer, a plane flew over taking survey photographs, and the camera caught what the ground had been hiding. Faint shadows in the grass. A row of them, running in a long, gentle arc. When archaeologists opened the soil, they found a line of 12 large pits stretching about 50 meters across the field. And when the dating results came back, the numbers stopped everyone cold. The pits were roughly 10,000 years old. Let that number breathe for a second. This is thousands of years before Stonehenge. Thousands of years before the first pyramid was a sketch in anyone's head. Before the first city, before the first farm in Britain, before writing existed anywhere on Earth. The people who dug these pits were hunter-gatherers. They fished the river below the terrace and tracked game through the hills. They are the very people the cartoon caveman was invented to insult, and they left something in the ground so far ahead of its time that we nearly missed the point of it. Here's how the team that studied the site reads it. And they offer it as an interpretation, not a settled fact. 12 pits. Roughly one for each time the moon lives and dies in a year. A calendar you do not carry. A calendar you walk. Each pit a month laid out in the ground. If the reading stopped there, this would already be remarkable. It does not stop there. It gets better. And the way it gets better is the smartest thing in this entire story. The moon has a flaw. It is a beautiful clock, and it lies a little. 12 full cycles of the moon add up to about 354 days. And the real year of the seasons, the year the sun runs, is about 11 days longer. So a pure moon calendar drifts. Every year it slides 11 days out of step with the seasons. Let it run on its own for 3 years, and it is more than a month wrong. A month. Remember what a week or two meant to the family on the trail. A calendar that drifts a month is worse than no calendar at all, because it is confident and wrong at the same time. Now, here is what the archaeologists noticed about those 12 pits. The whole arc lines up with a notch in the hills to the southeast. And through that notch, on the shortest day of the year, the midwinter sun comes up. Once a year, the sunrise lands in that gap like a hand reaching down to a dial. If the interpretation holds, the drifting moon count could be checked against that sunrise and reset, wound back to 0, corrected. Stop and take in what that would mean. It would mean these people were not just counting time. It would mean they knew their count had an error in it, knew roughly how big the error was, and shaped the land itself to fix that error once a year. Every year, they found a bug in the sky and engineered a patch for it. 10,000 years ago, with digging sticks. Now, the honest footnote, because this channel owes you one. The pits cannot speak. Nobody left an instruction manual in the ground. And careful archaeologists say plainly that the calendar reading is a hypothesis, a strong and beautiful one, still standing after years of scrutiny, still unproven. But notice what does not depend on the hypothesis at all. 10,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers organized themselves to dig a 50-meter monument aligned on the midwinter sunrise, and their community maintained it. We can see the recuts in the soil for centuries, whatever the pits meant. The people who dug them were watching the sky with precision and building their knowledge into the land. The cautious version of this story is still astonishing. Think back to the old woman on the trail north, because Warren Field is her story finishing itself. Everything she knew lived in her skull. The notch, the moons, the cranes, 50 years of hard-bought reading skill. All of it riding through the snow in one aging body. If you saw our story about the painted caves, you already know the oldest rule of life on this planet. What a mind learns, death erases, and every generation pays to learn it again. Her knowledge was one bad winter away from vanishing. The bone in the drawer was a first crack in that rule, a count that lived outside a brain, in a thing you could hold, keep, hand to a daughter, Warren Field blew the crack wide open. Here, the most important knowledge a community owned. When the year turns, when the light comes back, stop depending on any single living memory. The woman who reads the horizon will die. A horizon dug into the earth by human hands does not, for 4 billion years. Living things could only watch time pass. Then, in a field in Scotland, somebody grabbed hold of it and nailed it to the ground. Be careful with a claim like that chapter title, because nature is full of planners. A scrub jay will hide food today for a breakfast it expects tomorrow. A bear fattens itself for a winter its body can already feel coming. Squirrels cache. Beavers build. Birds fly south ahead of the frost. The living world is crowded with creatures leaning into what comes next. And anyone who tells you animals only live in the present has not watched them closely. But look at what the family in this story is doing, and find its equal anywhere on Earth. 9 lives bet on a morning that is 3 moons away, in a valley none of them can see, on the word of a grandmother reading a notch in a ridge, a bone in a pouch holding a count that no single memory has to carry. 12 pits in Scotland holding the shape of the year for whoever comes walking after the diggers are dead. AJ plans for tomorrow because its body tells it to. These people were building tomorrow into objects, into land, into each other, and handing it down the generations like property. Nothing else alive does that. Nothing else even comes close. So, the question we started with, could prehistoric humans keep track of time? Give the honest answer, not the way you do. Nobody in that world ever knew it was 7:15 on a Tuesday in October. And nobody needed to. They tracked the pieces of time their lives actually hung on. The turning of the light. The death of moons. The return of animals. And on those pieces, their clock was never allowed to be wrong. It ran without a single written number. And it kept a species alive through an ice age. 1 scene left. The debt from chapter 1 comes due. The family reaches the northern valley with the last of the dried fish gone soft in the bags. They raise the tents. They wait. 1 night, 2 nights. The young hunters start glancing at the old woman, and she does not look back at them. She watches the eastern skyline and says nothing. On the 3rd night, nobody really sleeps. In the gray light of the 4th morning, the ground begins to hum. They hear it before they see anything. A low rolling thunder with no cloud in the sky. Thousands of hooves coming down through the hills. Then the first animals break over the ridge, and the river of reindeer pours into the valley. Exactly where the grandmothers said it would be. Exactly when the sun and the moon and the cranes had promised. Not one person standing in that valley knew the date. No month. No year. No written number anywhere in their world. They stood in the right place, at the right time, waiting on a future they had never seen. And the future walked in on schedule. Long before the first number was ever written down, long before the first calendar and the first clock, human beings learned how to make an appointment with tomorrow. And tomorrow showed up